count of 5, you're Lynn.
Okay.
Welcome to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota. Today's program, we're going to talk with candidate Lynne Torgerson from the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota, vying for the Republican endorsement. It's Keith Ellison's district, and we're talking to Lynne today by the power of Skype, as well as the Voltus data center that Inform TV is located in Alexandria, Minnesota. And we're going to have an open, candid discussion of the issues. We're going to give Lynne an opportunity to express her views to potential supporters in outstate Minnesota that believe in the Republican philosophy, or independents that are looking for somebody besides a person in their own congressional district to support, to see that this country starts moving forward, whether we have a Democratic president, a Republican Congress, or whatever, that we start addressing the issues. Inform TV, that's what we're all about. Lynne, welcome to Inform TV, and can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and your philosophy on working to get the Republican endorsement in the 5th Congressional District?
Thank you again, Alan, for having me today. I do consider it a privilege and an honor. My name is Lynne Torgerson, and I'm running for Congress here in the 5th Congressional District of the state of Minnesota. That is essentially Minneapolis and the first ring suburbs around Minneapolis. A little bit of background about myself is that I was born and raised in the Minneapolis and surrounding suburban area. Been in Minneapolis, roughly the past 30-some years. I attended the University of Minnesota and graduated with degrees in political science and psychology. After that, I attended law school at William Mitchell College of Law in St. Paul, Minnesota. Graduated with honors, also participated in law review when I was there. And after law school, I got a rather coveted position with the United States District Court in Los Angeles, California, working for a federal magistrate, Judge Geffen. Spent a little bit of time out there, returned to Minneapolis when I founded my own successful law practice, which I've had downtown Minneapolis about the last 17 years, and recently won a case at the United States Supreme Court on constitutional grounds, right of confrontation issue, and was recently awarded Attorney of the Year.
Lynne, people obviously, when you're working to get the endorsement at this point in time, from a political philosophy, from a Republican standpoint, an independent standpoint, that you must have both to get the endorsement and to go forward as a successful candidate, what's some of your philosophies, or what's your focus of your campaign to the people that you want to endorse you?
Okay, thank you. Just an overview is that I would probably characterize myself as a conservative, and the only true conservative running for this seat. A lot of my issues line up with the Republican platform. If people take a look at the Republican platform, there's primarily 3 reasons why I'm running. One is I've been around a while now. I'm 51 years old. I've had a chance to look at other countries on the earth, and we really do live in the best, safest, freest, and most prosperous country on earth, without even remote comparison, and I want to help and keep it that way. I believe our Constitution has a lot to do with that, as well as the values that this country were founded upon. I also believe that we need to get people with the right values in office, and that if we get people with the right values, which I believe I have and are outlined on my website, then they enact the right laws, and that benefits both this district and the entire country. And thirdly, I am running against, I want to replace Keith Ellison, who I think is probably one of the most inappropriate people to be a congressman that we have in Congress right now. He has ties to radical Islamism, and those people need to be educated on that, and his ties to that and what he actually stands for. He's tied to the Council on American Islamic Relations, which was a named co-conspirator to funding terrorism, and he helps them raise funds, and they help him raise funds. And so they're just trying to expose him and get him out of office as well.
Now, obviously, you're working to get the Republican endorsement at this point in time, but the real issue that when it comes down to the campaign is people are concerned about the economy, they're concerned about jobs, they're concerned about energy, they're concerned about national defense. First of all, from a standpoint of the economy and jobs, what's your philosophy there, or what are you running on? Are you focused on growth? Are you focused on the reality maybe that the economy has changed a lot, and from a standpoint here at Inform TV, we look at the monthly Treasury statement. I think last month alone the federal government spent $288 billion more than we took in. It's going to be another year with a $1 trillion plus deficit. What's your thought on that? What do you bring to the table to the Republicans that are looking at endorsing you?
Thank you. You know, an issue that seems to be just critical at this time is the growing debt. It's as though somebody has turned on a faucet, and it just needs to be turned off. What we have to do is we have to cut spending dramatically, and it's going to be, and we need to support our elected officials to make very difficult cuts. And we need to support candidates who are willing to make very difficult cuts. You know, our debt right now is approximately $16 trillion. I think I did the math one time, and if we repaid that at a rate of $1 a second, which is approximately $86,000 a day, it would take us 525,000 years to repay our current debt. So this is a very serious issue that we've got to get under control, and we really need to get away from the politicizing this and just saying things to sound good and make people vote for us. We've got to take some very serious action to stop the growing debt.
What about the revenue side, Lynn? Sorry to interrupt you, but economists and people like myself, and have been involved in business all my life, anybody that's involved in restructuring a business ever in their career, find out that the banker who is very skeptical about what a person that is struggling, in this case it's the United States government, is struggling with our fiscal avenues. What do you bring in as far as the revenue side? Where do you stand on the Bush tax cuts? In fact, I watched CNBC this morning, and some of the traditional Republicans are saying, well, we just can't let that go through. But with approaching 17 trillion now in debt, the revenue source is going to have to go up, and the true economists are saying you just can't grow your way out of it. You're going to have some revenue increases. Where do you come from on that, Lynn?
You know, the United States government has the largest budget on earth, and it has the largest debt on earth, which reveals actually just gross mismanagement of revenue. And I do not believe that the U.S. government should receive a lion's share of anybody's business profits or individual income. I think we can both cut spending and reduce taxes. Eventually, I would work towards, and this is a long-term project, of course, work towards a 10% tax rate. I don't think our government needs any more than 10% of every business profits in the United States and every individual's profits in the United States. So work toward, reducing taxes eventually to a 10% tax rate, as well as dramatic cuts in spending.
What about the energy situation? If you go online and look at Informed TV, we've been talking here about the Keystone Pipeline. In fact, last week we talked about how Minnesota, the state government, should be getting involved in putting our own pipeline or stopping some of these rail shipments of crude oil, cheap crude oil out of North Dakota that is about $20 a barrel cheaper than West Intermediate crude, or probably $40-some a barrel cheaper than Brent crude, and yet our state leaders, our state congressional delegation, both Republicans and Democrats, are letting that cheap crude coming out of American soil leaving us. And also, we've talked here about the importance of the Chevy Volt. Have you ever thought about leasing a Chevy Volt, or one of your campaign supporters, and drive the Chevy Volt, so you can start to talk to people about the importance of switching off the traditional combustion engine and getting to electric plug-in car? I would encourage you to do that as a former candidate. What's your thought on energy?
As far as what I know, I think, the new pipeline is a good idea. I do think we need to develop alternative sources of energy. I do also want to cease buying oil from Saudi Arabia altogether. They are an enemy of the United States, and we need to stop sending money over there to help our enemies. I do think, there's an idea out there for electric cars and battery charged. Instead of having a gas station, we could have a battery station, and where they take out a battery with a machine and they install another one, and you're off and ready to go. There would be, great infrastructure changes needed for that. I think they're doing that in Israel, or planning to do that in Israel, and it sounds like a great idea. I think we need to, develop solar, wind, geothermal. I don't really support though, the expansion of nuclear energy.
From a standpoint of the Chevy Volt, and why I bring that up, and I encourage you at the very minimum to go to one of your local Chevy dealers in the Twin Cities and go for a test ride on that. I think the Chevy Volt can do everything we need right now without any real major changes in infrastructure, because it'll run about 40 to 50 miles strictly on electricity, and commuters will find that basically they can do their commute day in and day out strictly on electricity, especially if they have an opportunity to plug their Chevy in at their work site, and then when they want to drive to Texas or wherever, they just stop when they need a cup of coffee or a bathroom break and fill it up with gas and continue to go. So I want you to think about that when you're talking to your people. The other thing, from a standpoint of you talked about obligations that the United States has around the world with the defense budget. What's your thought on there? Is it time some of our allies start contributing to the incredible cost of being the world's policeman? And what's your thought on that? Should we continue as the superpower, or do you believe in some of the philosophies such as Ron Paul? What's your thought that way as far as America's obligation to keep a world at peace and a world safe?
The United States has done a great job for a very long time on being the world's policeman. And I think, not only are we the world's policemen, we're also the most generous country on earth. We give away more money than a lot of countries' entire gross revenue per year, which a lot of people forget. I don't necessarily, I do not agree with Ron Paul pretty much on anything. I think Ron Paul is, he's a libertarian, he's not a Republican. I would support preventing a nuclear Iran. We need to support Israel in those efforts as well. I don't necessarily support building infrastructure, however, in Iraq or Afghanistan, things like that. I don't that has worked, and I don't think it's a good investment. I don't think they're using the buildings that we've built, and they don't appreciate them. I think sometimes if people don't invest their own money and labor in things, they don't appreciate them.
Lynne, your other
bet. Strong homeland security. I'm not an isolationist. Ron Paul, I also believe in supporting our ally and friend Israel in a very hostile portion of the world, generally to the United States. I would not, however, have intervened in Libya. The people rose up against their own government in Libya. We don't have any business. Any government that is attacked by its own people is going to suppress that, and that's what happened in Libya. And I think we should have stayed out of that. But generally, I'm very strong on Homeland Security. I am extremely grateful to our troops over, the 250 years that this country has existed. We owe a huge debt of gratitude for all of our freedoms to the troops who have fought and given their lives and
Lynne, I need to interrupt you from a standpoint of bringing it back to you and Keith Ellison with the assumption that you get the nomination. Now, you've been a vocal critic of Islam, and Keith is the only Islamic congressman or senator, I believe. So give us some views on how you view Islam with a strong Islamic base in the Twin Cities today, and the separation of your thoughts and your actions compared to Keith Ellison.
Yes, thank you. I do want to say I haven't been critical of Islam per se. I am very outspoken against radical Islamism, which is a kind of a term of art. And I always want to mention that I have pretty much devoted my adult career up to this point to protecting the constitutional rights, particularly of minorities, of people of all races, nationalities, and religions. Every walk of life I have devoted my adult career to. So, and I like to point that out so that people understand, exactly who I am and where I'm coming from. And, but what I do have a problem with are what's called radical Islamism or radical Islamists. They are intolerant, both criticizing their religion or Muhammad or Islam, or and they retaliate with death threats or actually killing people or rioting and things of that nature. They have problems with this in other parts of the world, in the Middle East. Now they're having serious problems in Europe. There's portions, and they take over large portions of territory in other countries. In Paris, there's, I think, approximately 700 or 800 locations where the police in Paris are afraid to go because they have been taken over by radical Islamism.
What about from a standpoint of the independents watching this program that are looking for to support candidates outside their district? What is the main issues that you would be different in Congress from Keith Ellison?
Okay. Oh, we are different probably on every point. I'm for, individual responsibility. I really don't believe that government creates jobs, businesses do. Keith is always talking about they're going to create, he is going to create 1 million jobs or 3 million jobs. What he's talking about are police officer jobs and firefighting jobs, and I'm very grateful for police and fire men, but that's really not job creation. without a private business sector, there is no tax money, tax revenue for the governments to pay our police and firemen. So we have to have private business just to support private police and firefighters. So him creating additional government jobs really is not job creation. And that's the business of the private sector. So I'm free market solutions. Would want to repeal Obamacare. Keith Ellison is pro-Obamacare. I'm pro-life, pro-Israel. I oppose gay rights legislation. Keith Ellison is pro-choice, pro-Palestinian, and supports gay rights legislation. I oppose a nuclear Iran. Keith Ellison doesn't want to prevent a nuclear Iran. And it's very much the other person seeking the endorsement in this. It's a contested endorsement race for the Republican endorsement. He's a pretty much staunch Ron Paul libertarian, Chris Fields. He supports gay rights legislation. He's personally pro-life, but will not back it up with legislation, which essentially is the same thing as pro-choice. He doesn't oppose a nuclear Iran. He said things like he applauds Keith Ellison's representation of Muslims. He said that he feels sorry for Saddam Hussein. I'm very glad that our United States government took out Saddam Hussein. He was a very evil man. He murdered, gassed to death several, I think 100,000 of his own people. Sent Scud missiles into civilian territory in Israel, and reimbursed suicide bomber families $25,000. So there's absolutely no reason to be feeling sorry for Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, Lynn, from a standpoint,
this is a very serious contested endorsing convention coming up. Our district has some very serious issues. We have problems with the Democrats. We have problems with Ron Paul libertarians. I'm told that there is a majority delegates of Ron Paul libertarians in my district, which is absolutely, ridiculous. They have a different ideology than the Republican platform. They're anti-war. Republicans are strong homeland security. They're pro-gay rights. The Republican platform supports one man, one woman marriage.
Who do you support of the key Republican candidates, Lynn? Which of the basically three remaining Republican candidates? Who do you support at this time, and will you support the endorsed candidate regardless of who it is? For president?
Three remaining candidates for which position?
For president. We have Romney, Santorum, and Gingrich at this point in time. Which of those three are you supporting, and will you support the Republican endorsee regardless, or what's your thoughts that way?
I'm supporting Santorum.
Okay.
At this point, he's a true conservative. I recently founded Christians United in Politics. I think conservative Christians need to get involved in politics. If conservative Christians do not get involved in politics, there is no one left to represent those values. So we are getting to a very serious point in our country, and I do believe that we have to have a strong moral foundation in our country for any economic policy to work. If you have a decaying foundation, it doesn't matter what economic policy you put on top of it, I don't think it's going to be supported. And I think that's part of the problems of what's going on in this country right now. I do not support Romney. I think I have been told by very high-powered Republican people that I'm a conservative Christian, that the phrase was that Christians used to be in the Democrat Party. They didn't want them there. Now they're in the Republican Party, and we don't want them either.
What from a standpoint, obviously you're a woman, we have many women watching this program. Where do you fall as far as Planned Parenthood, birth control being offered under various insurance plans, or access to family planning by young women that do not hadn't intended to become pregnant, or from somebody that the doctor told him this fetus will not be a normal individual. What's your thought that way, Lynn?
You know, I just want to finish up on that one thing and then address that.
You've got about 3 minutes.
Christians have been pretty faithful people, and I think the Republican Party has depended, or the Republican, kind of liberal Republicans have depended on or known that they can count on our vote. I think we seriously need to, that people, if it's Romney or whoever, that, conservative Christian Republicans will vote for Romney. They've, in my district, they've been talking about we need to try and get the gay vote, and we need to get the Muslim vote, and, and various other things. And they're really not doing anything to woo the conservative Christian vote. So maybe we need to start requiring them to put up candidates that we can actually support before they get our vote, because I don't think they can make it without our vote, and they need our vote. And it's something that we need to start considering in order to get the right candidates into office.
What about the women's issues that we just have 1 minute left? I didn't mean to interrupt you. What about the women's issues that I talked about?
I have friends who are pro-choice, and they say, well, I don't want to tell a woman what to do with her body. But in actuality, the woman actually did with her body what she wanted to do, and she fully knows the consequences that she has the risk of getting pregnant. And now we have a different body within her body that needs to be protected. So I am pro-life. I would back it up with legislation. And I want to talk about the 99% of the times where it's just purely voluntary behavior and there's nothing wrong with the fetus. I think we need to deal with that issue before we get to the 1% of, well, what do we do in these really tough issues? Well, let's first deal with the 99% of that needs to be prohibited, rather than the really thorny issues of, when there's serious threats to the baby or the mother and things like that.
Okay.
And I would support pro-life legislation.
Okay. Lynn, we're running out of time here, and I want to thank you very much for being part of this discussion from a congressional candidate, and to show my audience some of the things we at Inform TV here want to be involved in, to give both sides an opportunity to express their view on this very important election year, a year when economics in this country seem to be lost into ideology, and still the same old social issues are dominating the debate. And we've got a real challenging election process and a leadership agenda ahead. We want to thank you, Lynn, very much for being part of this broadcast today, and we look forward to talking to you in the future if you get the endorsement. Thank you for listening to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much.